What's going on, guys? It's Bromley at Empire Barbell, and I just got back from Daytona Beach, Florida. Last weekend, myself, Andrew Mock, Eric King, and my beautiful girlfriend Laura all decided to head out to Florida to represent Empire Barbell at the official Strongman Games. Now, for those of you who don't know, OSG is ran by the same organization that does World's Strongest Man. You can think of it as World's Strongest Man for women's divisions, masters divisions, and weight classes. I believe there were 9 divisions total. Represented over 3 days of competition. The way the competition was structured, you had 3 days, 2 events on each day. At the end of day 2, you had to be a top 10 overall to progress to day 3. I hate long intros just as much as you guys do, so I'm going to give a very quick recap of the contest results, and then I'll save my 2 cents for the very end. So myself and Andrew were both in the 231s. Now, Andrew Mock is a fantastically gifted athlete. He's probably one of the tallest 231s around. He's 6'3", which is very tall. You know, he could fill out to be a good heavyweight eventually. But things like moving events, his grip is disgusting. Loading events are really good. Throwing events are really good for him. So the things he's good at, he's unstoppable at. We've spent some time working on some of his weaknesses, which really boils down to static strength. His deadlift needs to pop up about 50 pounds. His press has gotten immensely better, and that showed at this contest. But Andrew's going to be very good. He made me nervous at this contest. He's going to be very good very soon. So the first event up was the Viking press. They ran us in heats of 4 people. They told us that the weight was about 312 in hand. Now, a lot of people were getting 0s and 1s left and right. Like, people were complaining it was the apparatus, the lever arm was too short, so it pushed you back in an unnatural groove. And just like all contests, when people don't do well, they complain, and it's never their fault. I'm not aware of any strong pressers that struggled, but then again, I wasn't exactly taking a poll. So I go up in the Viking press, and I signed up late, which meant I was in one of the earlier heats, and I happened to be right next to Isaac Mays. Now, Isaac Mays is a Canadian. I believe he's a pro. I'm not entirely sure about the pro structure in Canada, but he's a very, very good Canadian athlete. And when you're in the heats like that, you're trying to get your pace set, you're trying to pay attention to the judge, you're trying not to get distracted by the crowd or the lights or anything else. You have no idea what's going on next to you. So whether the guys were getting 0s or a million reps, I had no idea. So looking at the video, I see that Mays is just clipping off reps. And I wish I would have paid a little more attention, because I think I would have got my ass in gear. After watching so many people 0, I hit 12, and I paced it out. My plan was to do it as a rest pause type set. Do about half the reps I thought I was capable of, rest, do another 50% of my capability, and then hopefully have enough energy to knock out a couple. I thought it worked out okay. I finished with 12 reps. I walked away thinking I had it, and then I heard the announcer say 13 for the win. So of course Mays just grinded through 13, but he was on point. I mean, he went hard in the beginning. He did the really steep pushback. They won't let you jerk, so you can't rebend your knees to get under the weight, but you can rebend your hip to push yourself back and away and then stand up. And Mays was really good with that technique. I thought I was doing that, and then I looked at the video and realized I was not doing that. So I ended up tying Marcin Sendwicki, who is a Polish freak. I mean, the guy has like an 850 deadlift. He's extremely explosive. He's very unassuming, but the guy is nasty. He ended up taking 3rd overall in the contest. So I tied for 2nd place with 12 reps. Andrew was, that was one of the highlights, because Andrew is very good with a jerk. He has a 365 jerk, but his push press is a ways behind. And I've had him just drilling the shit out of push presses. I wasn't sure how he was going to do. I thought for sure he'd get a few reps. He came in, missed the first 2 attempts, and then set it down and backed away. He was dealing with a rotator cuff tear that he got a couple weeks before the meet, and I was worried it was giving him trouble. I thought, oh God, he's done. He's not going to do well. And he came back after 30 seconds and just committed to it and sucked out that 1 rep.
But there it is right there. There's an example, Bill. He thought he was the beat, but he dug down just then, and with just seconds left on the clock, got a rep.
Which was absolutely huge for him. It was very calculated, very mature move on his part. And that 1 rep started him out. I think there were 12 zeros. So it gave him like 13 points right off the bat, which was huge. Last year in the first 4 events, he took bottom 2 in the overhead and the deadlift. That means second to last. He still placed 11th. which almost got him into the top 10. That's how good he is at the other events. So I knew if his overhead started off better, it was just game over. So he got that 1 rep. That was huge. You can hear the announcers talk about it. That was a real highlight of the trip, to show that the training payoff, but to show the maturity of the approach, to not fall apart, to not just start plugging away as if somehow you don't fatigue exponentially with each failed rep. So that was great to watch. So from the overhead press, the Viking press, we go into the farmer's walk. Farmer's walk was 315 per hand, I believe. They were really high picks. We picked from like 13 inches. I think these handles were at like 17, right by our knee. So it was a very easy pick. That's usually how it is at these contests, which is why I like training on shitty low handles. But my grip is super finicky. I have days where it's rock solid. I have days where it's just everything slips out of my hands. And all I can do is just bake my hands in chalk and just hope they're dry enough to hold on. So I knew this was going to be a foot race, 50 foot down, turn around to keg, come back. Again, Andrew's fantastic with moving events, and he has an iron grip. He holds on to anything. So he set the pace. He was one of the first ones to clear it out. I want to say he got like 24 seconds without any drops, which is a really fast time. Anthony Furman ended up winning this run with 20 seconds, and he actually did a strategic drop. He said he's having knee issues. One of his knees is just bone on bone, no cartilage, no meniscus, from what I hear. So he has his knee wrapped up, and he cites stability issues for not wanting to commit to the turn. But he came in, took a tight turn, dropped it immediately, and then picked it up and sprinted the rest of the way. 20 seconds is fast on that run, and he set the pace. I had 1 drop. The fact that I got it 95 feet without dropping is huge for me with that weight. So I couldn't be that mad. But you're going to see in this video how I have a good run going, and as I drop it, I just get passed up by everybody. And part of that's my grip. Actually, it's all my grip. I have to really slow down my foot. I have to really slow down my foot speed so that the farmer handles don't jar out of my hands, because when your grip starts opening up, every hard step you take starts to wiggle the handles loose. So I really had to put the brakes on to make sure I didn't drop it. So Isaac Mays set a good time. Sendwicki beat me by half a second. So to put it in perspective, 20 seconds to my 26 seconds, I think that put me in something like 8th place in that event. Like, that's how tight the times were. So out of 26 guys, I was still happy to be towards the top third. But the fact is, if you want to be on the podium, you got to tighten up those margins, and you got to be at the top of the pack. You can't be a step behind. So we go into day 2. We start off with the deadlift ladder, 585, 635, 675, 725. Now, to date, the heaviest deadlift I ever pulled was a 705 as part of my peak. I hit it for 2 reps. I was very confident that I was going to get the 725. And I opted to go no straps because it's quicker and I can get tighter with the deadlift suit if I take a breath at the top and hold it on the way down. I get a lot more compression. So I run through this thing, and the weight is moving faster than it has ever felt in my entire life. I almost smiled with the third one because 675 has ever moved that quickly. I went to the 725 and the little seed of doubt kicked in, and I stopped and put my straps on. I am 99% sure that if I took an extra 10 seconds and that if I went mixed grip and got my breath at the top, I would have had that pull. I still can't be mad because that's 20 pounds more than I've ever pulled. I got it to my knees. I'm actually weak off the ground. Historically, if I'm fresh, if I get the bar moving with any amount of speed, I can get it over my knees, and then it's game over. So the fact that I moved it, the fact that it came 17 seconds after 3 pulls, all around or above 600 pounds, I can't be that upset. My deadlift has definitely improved a lot. This was a big game changer for me. There were either 4 or 5 guys that pulled it. I thought my 675 right at 17 seconds, I'm like, that's quick, that's gonna stand. I took like 9th overall in that event. Like, that's how freakish these deadlifters are. Again, Sendwicki has like an 850 deadlift somewhere on his Instagram page. Shoemaker, Furman was telling me, pulls in the high 800s. There's a video of him like with an 825 for 3. As a 105 athlete, that is disgusting strength. So 4 or 5 guys cleared out the 725, and then a handful beat me just on time. They got that third pull in like 15 seconds, 14 seconds. So, speed's a priority, strategy's a priority. But the way I look at it is, down the road, the idea is that my strength isn't on this razor thin margin of, am I going to complete it? it's going to be so much above the contest weight that I can do what Furman does and just get reckless. That's what he says. He's like, I just get reckless. He's like, I know I can pull it, so I just tear through it as fast as I can. So, you know, being very strong gives you a big margin in your strategy. Andrew pulled the first two. I was confident he was going to get the 675 because he's been looking good in his training. But I want to say his pec, right around where his shoulder injury was, started to tighten up. So he shut it down.
15 seconds. Is anyone happy?
And you can see him at the very end, he kind of grabs his shoulder, but he didn't sacrifice so many points. You know, last year he took second to last. He didn't sacrifice so many points that his placing was really in danger. So he ended up in a really good spot going into the fourth event. I want to say he was just a place or two out of top 10, but the carry medley is just a disgusting event for him. So he gets to the carry medley, 3 implements, all right around 300 pounds. I hear different numbers, but it was at least a 300-pound bag. The keg was right around 3 or 310. The sandbag, keg, sandbag, Husafeld stone, they were all right around 300 pounds. I don't think anything was less than 300 pounds. And you dump them all into a sled, 50-foot sled drag. So you're looking at 300 feet of moving with these heavy-ass implements. It's a death medley. It's a disgusting medley. It's something that by the time you're done, if you're not strong enough to handle it or you're not in good enough shape, you feel like you want to die. It's horrible. So of course Andrew shows up, just tears through it, finishes the whole thing right at 60 seconds. We had a minute and a half to do it. The guys that broke into that minute and a half threshold, I mean, that difference in 30 seconds of work, you start to kick into different energy systems. I mean, that just blew these guys out. So the fact that Andrew could kind of jog through it, finish it quickly, he took first in that event. That was his first outright event win. And, you know, he saved himself. He wasn't that gassed afterwards. He looked no worse for the wear. I got it in a minute 13, and it's one of those things where I feel like I'm just booking it. I'm like, God damn, I'm moving so fast right now. And then you watch everybody else just creep right up past you, and you look at the video, and you're like, what am I doing? Like, I'm not even trying. Like, that's not even kind of fast. I was happy with my performance. I was training it linearly, and so meaning that I would set up the whole thing, and I started with light weights, and then I would work on finishing it, and then I would bump up closer to contest weights as the weeks went on. But I got to the point where I'd have trouble finishing just the carries, which means I didn't get to the sled drag. So my peak went well enough. In the last couple of weeks, I really tightened up my carries. It went well enough that I started to get all 3 loaded in, you know, minute 15, minute 20. But as I got to a minute 30, I just couldn't pull anything. I was too gassed. So I never gave the sled drag enough training. I should have trained it separately. I didn't. In hindsight, that was a big flaw in my prep. The 3 implements went pretty quick. I want to say I got them all in about 45 seconds, maybe 50 seconds. That sled was disastrous. I mean, once I went to pull, I was like, okay, I can finish this, but it is going to suck. And it did, every step. Quads, glutes, hamstrings, just fire the entire time. You have to have that conversation with yourself. How bad do I want to do this? Is it that important? I could stop right now and no one can judge me. But, you know, at the end of the day, you show up, you signed up for this misery, and you got everybody watching you. And you know on some level that stopping because it hurts just is not an option. So I just dug down, I kept moving my feet, I crossed the finish line, and then I had to go lay down for 3 minutes while the blood drained out of my legs. I mean, I felt like I did 5 minutes of leg extensions. That's what that pump felt like. But I was happy I cleared it out, much better than in training, just way better than in training. And again, a sign that my peak went well, went the way it was supposed to go. A minute 13 to Andrew's minute, again, that 13-second range, I took, I believe, 8th in that event. You know, I thought, oh man, I booked it, I did really well, not a lot of guys are gonna beat that. And that still kept me right outside of that little cluster of the best guys. Isaac Mays was disgustingly fast. He got it in 2 seconds slower than Andrew's time. Furman was fast. He beat me by 5 seconds, and Wiki beat me by 3 seconds or 5 seconds. So I was just right outside the cusp. And that's not new. That's how these races go. You're constantly looking for things you can tighten up. You're constantly looking for, okay, is it foot speed? I spent a lot of years just drilling foot speed because my feet were physically slow. So now my foot speed's good. It's okay. Is it transition time? On this one, the sled slowed me down. I really feel like I could have shaved 6 or 8 seconds off if I had a more aggressive sled pull, but I couldn't because I was out of shape because I didn't train it. So part of that problem solving, it's one of the reasons I really like Strongman, and it's what makes training Strongman interesting to me. That's why I keep at it. So at this point, we're wrapped up with day 2. Me and Andrew are both sitting. I'm in 5th place overall. He's in 8th. So we're both into day 3. So we had a celebration just for that. We show up into day 3, and the guys on the podium are already looking like Furman, Mays, and Sendwicki, because those guys are just a step above everybody else. I was looking at Chad Currian. He's been around for a long time. I believe he was a good heavyweight for a long time, and then he dropped weight. So last year he cleared out the deadlift when they had the 4th one at 765. I know he's pressed really big loads overhead. He's good. He's seasoned. He's been around for a minute. So I had my eye on him to edge out of 4th place. And then there were a couple guys behind me that were good, but I wasn't too worried about. We were going into the axle clean and press each rep. It was a fixed axle, so you see these giant ass wheels. They don't turn, they don't rotate. So normally, if you go to spin a bar, the bar will spin and the plates will stay still. You know, the bar will spin inside the fitting of the plates. They bolted these wheels down. So if the bar turned, the wheels turned. So what that means is that if you have a grip on the bar and you go to turn it over in the rack position, it'll just pop out of your hands. So you have to physically pop the weight up, let go, and then receive the weight into your hands, which requires mobility, coordination, and athleticism. Historically not my strong suits. So I was very nervous. I worked up to a 310 single in training, I worked up to a 310 single in warm-ups just to get a feel for a heavy clean. And I actually missed the clean the first time. And this was on a rotating axle. So I was terrified with this 301 axle. I was just terrified that I wasn't gonna get any reps. I went out, I had a game plan. Instead of trying to gracefully kind of let the thing float and then catch it in this beautiful rack position that I'm barely capable of maintaining, I decided I was gonna get my belt extra tight and I was just gonna have to throw it back and maneuver around it that way. So you can see it paid off because I didn't miss any reps, but this is not the way you wanna practice your cleans. In another prep, I would absolutely revisit flexibility. I would go back to doing very classical receiving drills for catching a clean, something like Olympic weightlifters would do, because the guys with the Olympic weightlifting background, they stood out. They wasted a fraction of the energy. They were able to just go, go, go. And I was there trying to keep myself from falling apart. So I ended up getting 4 reps on this. I tied Anthony Furman for 2nd place. Sendwicki was disgusting, 6 reps, and he didn't waste any energy. I mean, this guy would hop it on his belt, and from his belt, he would pop the bar almost up by his nose, and just catching it was so easy for him. So that was an impressive display. It was a display of what it should look like if you're good at that event. So you could tell that a lot of us had that flaw. So we go into the power stairs. Not a great event for me. You see I'm wearing work boots that I squeezed a 3-inch foam insert into. So I'm 5'10" normally. Those boots made me 6'1", and that gave me a little bit of an edge. It really did. I don't think that would have gone as well if it wasn't for that. I think I would have stopped short a stair, honestly, if it wasn't for that little hack. Normally power stairs go very quick, so you focus on transition and hopping up and trying to string reps together very quickly. This started around 400 and it went to 450 to 470. It got really heavy really fast. The steps were high, they were 18 inches. I knew that this was not going to be a sprint. I knew guys were gonna have trouble finishing. So my goal was just to get the heaviest possible implement I could, so I paced myself. In fact, you see me coming down the stairs, I look like a geriatric. I mean, going down the stairs is a lot harder than going up. Andrew cleared it out just impressively. I knew he was gonna win. I didn't know by what margin. He was the only one to finish, and he did not look like he had that hard of a time. Isaac Mays got 1 step shy. He got 11 out of the 12 steps. Sendwicki, Mays, and I wanna say Shoemaker got 10 steps, and I edged out 9. So at this point, Currian only got 8 steps. I got one more rep than Korean in the axle clean and press, so I thought I had edged him out for 4th place. Just strongman points magic. The things he did beat me in, there just must have been enough of a margin where he had it padded. I beat him in 4 out of 6 events, but the events he beat me in, if there was a wider margin, it kind of balances out. So he ended up beating me by a half point, which, I mean, the fact that I got close to him, I know what his performances have been like in the past. I know he's been around a while, so it was really just an honor for me to kind of nip at these guys' heels, just to share the same stage with them, you know, let alone come close to placing with or beating any of them. But the top 3, I mean, Furman, Isaac Mays, and then Sendwicki took 3rd. Sendwicki won 2 years ago, I believe, and then Furman won last year. So to see them on that stage kind of fight it out, to see Mays in the mix, to see, you know, kind of be reminded what it really takes to be at the top of this game, it was cool as shit. It was cool to see kind of the pinnacle of the sport in action, because usually you get, you know, one guy that's an outlier that's really good, and then you get a bunch of other guys that each have obvious weaknesses. These guys didn't really have weaknesses. They were very well-rounded, very strong, very athletic. So yeah, again, it was just a pleasure to be part of that. Watching Andrew, I mean, he won 2 out of 6 events. I mean, that tells you that he's going to be a force to be reckoned with. For as good as these other guys are, Andrew has the capacity to be better. So we're already working on his static abilities. If we can get a good bump in his deadlift, he doesn't even have to pull what these guys pull. He just has to be able to not lose points. So a little bump in his static strength, man, 2020 is going to be his. Like, he's starting to make me nervous. So it was great. I ended up placing 5th. Andrew placed right behind me in 6th. So that was cool that we were kind of neck and neck right there. And then we had this awesome contest footage. So to go over the other 2, Laura was in the lightweight women's. Now, Laura has been dealing with this hip issue. She has a couple things. She has an extra vertebra, so they bump into each other, which causes nerve issues. She has inflammation in the crest of her hip, and she has a tendon inflammation issue deep in her glute. So she has these problems that make hinging under a load very, very difficult. If we're deadlifting, she gets 1 attempt and that's it, and then it starts to flare up and it becomes unbearable. So going into this meet, ideally she wouldn't do a meet, she would recover. But because we were going, we had the conversation, okay, do you want to suit up and get experience and just do what you can do and make yourself part of this event? Or do you want to sit around for 3 days and be our cheerleader? She opted to suit up, and I kind of knew she would. So we handled her prep very tentatively. We only had her do what she could do, and we accepted if she was going to lose points somewhere, there's nothing we can do about it. You can't get blood out of a stone. So she, starting out with a Viking press, that was probably the biggest disappointment because we expected her to do well. In that division specifically, out of I think 21 girls, 4 got reps. So you're looking at 17 girls zeroed. Laura swore she could have got a rep. She thought the stop was set too high. You can see where she hits and it saps her leg drive. She wasn't getting any good leg drive out of it. And that's, I mean, it's unfortunate. If she got a rep, that would have pretty much guaranteed her spot in the top 10. But, you know, there's nothing you can do about that. So it was very heavy. I think so many girls zeroed because with women specifically, you see a lot more jerking and they become competitive more quickly because they dedicate themselves to jerking. So I think there tends to be a bigger discrepancy in upper body types. And I think it mainly has to do with the way women tend to train versus the way men tend to train. People call it genetic. Women have the capacity to be very strong in their upper bodies. There's very few train it seriously enough to realize that strength. So I think you see a bigger gap. I think that's why you see somebody like Christina Bangma. I think she got 9 reps. And then you have 17 girls who are all very competitive who zeroed. So I think that's a discrepancy. That took the wind out of Laura's sails a little bit, but you know, again, you got 3 events left. There's nothing you can do. We went to the farmer's walk. She was having a lot of trouble with the farmers going into this prep because she couldn't pick weight. Again, couldn't hinge under a load. It would cause severe pinching. It would cause a lot of pain. It would flare up. It would make doing anything else impossible. So we were worried that she wasn't going to be able to pick it. We were ready to take a 0 and say, you know, nothing we can do next time, which is unfortunate because she has a really strong grip. She can hold on to anything. Laura not only picked it, she picked it 3 different times, trying to get it around that course, and she carried it 50 feet, which is a massive PR. The heaviest farmer she's ever done is 175 in each hand. This was 210 per hand, and she carried it 50 feet. More weight than she's ever been under, than she's ever been exposed to. I was ecstatic for her. From there, we go into the deadlift. The deadlift, I mean, she was gonna get one. It went from 315 to 455. Healthy, I fully believe she would have cleared out the first two, but it wasn't even worth the risk. So she did a very mature maneuver, pulled her 1 rep at 315 and shut it down. And that, I was proud of her for doing that, because as well as that move for her, it's very tempting to go on to the next one and give it everything you got. But she wanted to live to fight another day. Finishing with the carry medley, this was a highlight for me. I mean, besides the farmer walk PR, she couldn't pick the Husafell stone from the ground 4 weeks before the contest. A lot of it had to do with her hip issues and lack of confidence. A lot of it was she just wasn't comfortable and she wasn't in a strong position. So she was just very, very hesitant around these really low, awkward picks. Even in warm-up, she was struggling with the bag a little bit. But once that whistle blew, I mean, it was a 175 bag, 175 keg, I think a 175 Husafell stone. I think they were all similarly weighted. And she cleared them all out. I mean, she got all 3, which is the first time she's done that. And I really believe it was because of her mindset going in. She got in gamer mode. We really made the best of her training, and I think it showed. So I was so happy that she was able to get those out. So we made the best of a bad situation. She got good experience, and I'm really proud of the work that she did. We're gonna take a few months. We already spent a ton of money on physical therapy, so we have some idea on how to mend this thing, but a lot of it's gonna be time and just R&R. So once we get her healthy, it's gonna be a big rush back to the top. She's already excited for next year. So we got that to look forward to. The last one up was Eric. Eric King, he was in the 198s. Eric surprised me because he didn't really have any bad events. He didn't make any big hiccups. He was pretty even the whole time. I thought Eric would be a shoo-in for the top 10. There were some nasty 198s there. There were a bunch of guys that pulled well into the 700 range. In fact, I'm not sure. I think Aaron Fondry is an 800-pound deadlifter. I could be wrong about that. He didn't even make top 10. So you see how stacked it was. There were a lot of guys from Australia, a lot of guys from the UK. I think there was a guy from Sweden that ended up placing. There was just a very dense competitive group in the 198s. Eric banged out 7 reps in the Viking press. He might have been able to pace better and get a couple more, but he didn't lose a ton of points there. Again, a lot of guys zeroed there in his division. Farmer walk, he came 5 feet short of the finish line. Huge PR. He was never able to do that in training. He was so pissed he didn't finish. It was 295 per hand. I was like, Eric, you've literally never done that in training. You could barely get it 60 feet. So the fact that he pulled that out was huge for him. The deadlift, he got the first 3 implements. The last one was 675. He finished with a 635. 675, he's only pulled, I don't think he's ever pulled 675. So right there, he was mad that he didn't get an all-time PR as the 4th implement in a medley that has to be finished in under a minute. I mean, to me, he did fantastic on that. He did exactly what he could have done. And then the last one was the carry medley. He was very even. He was very consistent. Foot speed might be able to get a little faster. His conditioning was good. He gutted out the sled pull. His feet were slipping. I think it comes down to texture, from what type of shoe you're wearing, what type of grip you get. He said he was having some slippage issues, so he had to turn his feet sideways, which isn't optimal. That's why I always wear the same ugly New Balances. The New Balances never let me down. I love them. I can deadlift, squat, press in them, and I can run, and I can drag and flip tires and do whatever. So Eric's had a history of wearing shitty footwear that's cost him points. I don't know how much that cost him. He placed 13th, and I think it was a pretty narrow point spread going into top 10. It was a bummer, but he's hungry too. He already wants to start his next prep. So long story short, everybody had a fantastic showing. For me and Andrew to share those placings right next to each other in such a dense class, we were really excited for that. And Laura and Eric both have their eyes set on next year. It's going to be a great show. So thanks for sticking this very long video out. That is our contest write-up for official Strongman Games. Let me know if you have any other questions about the contest, about our prep, or anything else. You can always reach out to me on IG at Empire_Barbell. Until next time, this is Bromley at Empire Barbell. I'll see you.